Welcome to another Ember Weekend. I'm Jonathan Jackson, Roundel_SC on Twitter, and I am joined by Chase McCarthy. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, John.
Yeah. What is your Twitter handle?
I'm not on Twitter.
You're not on Twitter?
No.
Or what's your MySpace? MySpace.
My MySpace name is @code0100fun.
Nice. Okay, so yeah, together we represent Ember Weekend along with some guests and interview people that we occasionally do, and we talk about newsy things and stuff. So welcome, and hopefully we'll show you something about Ember today that you may not have known about.
Probably not.
And we're broadcasting out of Hash Rocket over at the beach in Jacksonville. So
No, it's a nice day out too.
it is a nice day out. It's like kind of slightly overcast.
It's Saturday and sunny outside at the beach. Yeah, a little overcast, which is actually better than full sun.
Yeah, for sure. No, man, come on. You gotta. I mean, that's why it's called Ember Weekend. We gotta do it on the weekend. All right. So, without further ado, let's get started.
So the first thing we're going to talk about is a Medium post by Jon Pitcherella about writing better tests in Ember.
Yeah. So this blog post rather was really, really good. It's a great synopsis of some of the better testing practices that I've personally come to kind of really enjoy. Definitely talks about like page objects and some of the abstractions there, and then some of the I don't know. At the very beginning, he kind of like does a TLDR and like here are the really important components to a test, and one is that they're easy to reason about. They are very granular. This is something that Gary Bernhardt, who just started Destroy All Software again. Did you see that, Chase?
No, I didn't see that. I'll have to check it out.
It just started back up. Anyways, he used to call this a binary test, where a binary test suite rather. So if one thing goes wrong, your tests just all start failing. And that's a binary test suite, and you don't want that. You want them to be very granular and test only one thing, such that when a test breaks, you only see one little red F, so that you know kind of generally where things are broken. And they have to be fast because not only does it save you productivity as far as like how much time you're wasting, it also encourages you to write more tests when the faster. So a developer might just not write a test if it takes 10 minutes to run their test suite. I've seen that before, and it's a tempting thing. You're just like, oh, I just added this one thing. I don't want to, or maybe not even that you're not writing tests, but you don't run the full test suite. You only run, isolated tests, and that's just as bad in some cases. So those are the things, and I really dug the TLDR at the very beginning.
Yeah, and just to expand a little bit more on the verbose part, this is kind of I think my favorite part because he talks about name your tests like very specifically. So the example he gives is like login versus user can successfully log in, which doesn't sound like it's a big change. You might think that you want to see this terse little, title of the thing, but it actually helps so much when you see a failing test and you immediately know how to fix it just by even looking at, the title of the test, or especially when you get a ton of tests and they're all kind of named similarly. Don't be afraid to put more, a little bit of description in that test. And then the second thing that was really important to me, especially with Ember because of QUnit, is putting the description, which is optional, in your asserts. Because when you do that, instead of getting I think it just says okay or something, a bunch of okays and then a bunch of crazy errors. If you put the description, it will tell you what all tests pass and then the exact test that failed. So it looks much nicer. If you start doing that, you will do it forever because it makes everything so much easier to read.
Yeah, I find myself, this is one of my definitely things that I need to work on. Very frequently, I'll write a test and I'll just sketch it out really quickly. And sometimes when I'm I know what the feature I want, I'll do two things, and they're in direct violation of these two very good testing tenets. And it's one is I'll just put in ellipses for the testing description line because I'm I'll figure that out later because naming is hard. And then for the asserts, I just don't write the assert description. And every single time, that has come back to bite me. I don't think I've ever committed, I don't think I've ever committed the ellipses, but I've definitely committed without adding the descriptor. So it's a really, really good habit to have. And I always appreciate, especially library code, when it has A should be true and it wasn't, expected this error and I got this other error. Whenever I see those assertion descriptions, it's just wow, that's such a nice little tiny thing that helps so much.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that you have to do it when you write the test the first time, because I went back and came onto an Ember project and I added a bunch. And one, it was really hard to decipher after the fact what some of the things were doing, which meant that if you had to do that while you're writing it, the test would probably be better anyway, because you're like, wait, I'm asserting on a lot of different conditions here, you know?
Yeah, it definitely makes you like step back and think about it. Absolutely. So and then he goes on to talk about the page object pattern, which is something we've talked about on the show a few times. And he goes through two different libraries, and one of which is the one that I think we prefer, and I think he prefers as well, which is Ember CLI page object. And there's one thing that we wanted to note. So page objects are good. We can probably link to another episode where we talk a little bit more in depth about page objects. But one of the things that that he mentions here is, instead of defining on IDs or class selectors, because designers will tend to change those, or they may become less apparent, or they might change. He describes them as volatile. Instead of using those, he uses something, an attribute, a data attribute called data-test. And that presents some interesting problems.
Yeah, the like some people have this kind of approach of like, I don't like having to add a bunch of test specific things to like the HTML, which is weird, as if you're kind of expecting that your users are all like inspecting the page and like criticizing you for your HTML. But it's a valid argument. But there are actually, we've heard this in a couple different talks. There are people that do this. I think Yahoo was one of them. And the way that they were kind of like sanitizing their code after the fact was they had a thing that would go through and clean up the test attributes in the like kind of processing stage.
Yeah, so like some sort of like HTML bars walker or something.
I think it was probably built with regular expressions or something. But I mean, any XML, it doesn't really have to be. You could do it after the fact. You could even do it after the HTML has been generated, and then just use an XML parser. That way you don't have to worry about the HTML bars kind of syntax.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking like that would be really helpful for, I mean, honestly, even reducing file size. I know it's probably very negligible, maybe like, I don't know, like at max, even in a big test suite, probably a couple kilobytes max. But even that, it could matter. And it definitely makes it easier to see outside of your test environment if you don't have to look at all the these extra unnecessary attributes.
Right.
But you definitely do end up having a more stable test suite, because a designer sees data-test and they're like, oh, well, I'm not going to change that because that's not my domain. Whereas I think that in a class or ID, changing that is totally within a different scope.
Yeah, and another thing that kind of would help, and I know it would help in our situation with our designers, sometimes designers move things around because they need to restyle things, but they had alternate choices that they could have done, but instead they do the thing that you were switching off of in your test. So if they knew that there's a test handle around this thing, they might be less likely to mess with it, or at least come and ask you, or somehow make a smaller change that doesn't require the thing that you're selecting off of to change.
Yeah, it could definitely like help with the communication there. Absolutely. And then the last thing he talks about is Mirage, and there's some really cool things that he talks about with regard to scenarios in a specific test that needs a different type of setup than your standard setup. You can override a server get. Although I still have some questions around this, because I'm not sure how this gets torn down in between test suites. So I'm wondering if this is polluting things, order dependent things, but I'm not 100% certain. So that's something that I'd like to reach out to Sam and talk about.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think that there's like not WebMock. What's the one that they use for Ember before there was Pretender? There was another one they were using.
Oh, like
Mockjax or Mockjax. Yeah, one of them.
HTTP. Oh yeah, one of those things.
Yeah, so I mean, I think with those ones, I think you can. It kind of works the same way as Pretender. You can mock it and then tear it down. So yeah, I would imagine that's probably pretty standard. I mean, to an extent, they're all
it's recommended by the Mirage docs, and he mentions that in the post. But I still like just knowing a little bit about the underneath. I wonder if that could cause some problems with Pretender getting something overridden, because I think I ran into this problem where I wanted to stub out one request, and then I wanted any subsequent requests to blow up or to do the default behavior, and I couldn't handle that.
Yeah, I could see how. Yeah, because when you define it, he's doing like a server.get thing just inside of a test block. Mm-hmm. So there's no context of when that test is done, other than maybe those ones are torn down at the end of every test.
At the end of every test, yeah, that's probably what's going on. I don't know. Once again, this is something that I'll have to learn a little bit more about, and then maybe we'll mention it on a future show.
Yeah, maybe we'll know what we're talking about at some point.
yeah. Well, fingers crossed. Anyways, yeah. So definitely check this blog post out. It's really good, and it's also kind of a quick read. I want to say like maybe 5 or 10 minutes, and then you could start putting some of these things into practice pretty quickly. All right, so the next thing we want to mention is Ember one-way controls hit 1.0 release, which is really cool. I really, really like Ember one-way controls. It's an add-on by Dockyard, and it allows you to do inputs as data downs, actions up.
Yeah, I really like this. I hope that this becomes the way in Ember. Sometimes it's convenient to have two-way inputs, but sometimes it feels really gross because you're like trying to do the DAO on everything, and then it's this is the one thing that messes with you is inputs.
Yeah, it's everything's the DAO except for inputs, which are now.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. I like that way of putting it.
Yeah. But anyways, it's a really great add-on. We were going to talk about it more at some point in the future. But for now, just know that it's out in 1.0 release, which means that you can start using it with a lot more
confidence.
Confidence, that's the word. Thank you. A lot more confidence. So definitely check that out. It's highly recommended. I think it's super great. It's so explicit and nice. So check it out.
And something we want to mention really quick is that Ember Redux, the add-on we've talked about a couple times in the past by Torrin Billups, now works on Ember Twiddle. So the major person involved in this was Dustin Ferris, and Torrin sent a shout out to him on Twitter, and that's how we found out about it. So that was pretty cool. Can't wait to start messing around with this. I haven't had an application that I could plug this into easily. That wasn't an existing application. So it's really nice to just be able to go into Twiddle and kind of just mess around with Redux, because I've been doing a lot more React lately. So it's nice to see how that stuff kind of translates over into Emberland.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see some demos come out of this as well, just to see more use cases for it. So that, when I need to do something this way, it might be a little bit more something that I have a little bit more reference around.
All of this is actually, really thanks to like Ember Twiddle getting support for most add-ons. Like It's very easy now. Or I shouldn't say it's very easy. I remember when Twiddle first came out, and we were having this conversation about when will they have add-on support, and then somebody, I can't remember who came back to us and was like, well, that's probably not going to be something that happens. And then sure enough, now it's just like, oh yeah, all those add-ons you like, you can just play around with them in Twiddle, and it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's great. And I'm sure add-on authors really like it for bug reports too. So all in all, I think it's a great tool. And the Ember Redux stuff looks really neat. Once again, I'm really excited to see some examples come out with it. I'm tracking along with the progress of it because it does seem very interesting. Yeah,
I want to see some like undo, redo kind of stuff with this. I don't know how I would do it. I've seen it with other examples of like Elm and just other languages now, and I'd like to see how Ember Redux handles something like that. Like managing those commands and then replaying them or undoing them.
Yeah, it'd be very cool to see for sure. Yeah. So anyways, check it out. We're gonna post a link to the demo that Torrin posted. All right, so thanks for listening to another Ember Weekend. This was a lot of fun.
Is it already over?
I think so. Yeah. This week was kind of a shorter episode, but next week we are going to be absent. It was shorter this week because we are prepping for a training that we're going to be doing next Monday and Tuesday. So if you're interested in that, I believe we have remote seats still available, so you can probably still sign up. And I'm really excited about that. But it's going to cut into our Ember Weekending for 1 week, and then we will return with episode 70 the following week.
Right, and that's in Raleigh, North Carolina, right?
Yeah.
So this is the second Gym Comp I think we're gonna have attended there.
Yeah.
I think the first one was technically called like Gym Live or something, Global Meetup Live.
Yeah. This time it's the Ember Show, and then our training the following 2 days. But yeah, anyways, once again, thanks for listening. I'm Jonathan Jackson, Rondale_SC. You can follow us at Ember Weekend, all one word, on Twitter, and that's a really great place to reach out to us. And I'm joined, of course, by Chase.
Yeah, I'm Chase McCarthy, code 0100fun. You can get me on Twitter, GitHub, MySpace, whatever.
MySpace, yeah, definitely add him on MySpace. I'm sure it's still all current, and you've got your favorites and stuff all lined up. If you want to track along with this, you can always add our feed. It's at emberweekend.com/feed.xml, and we will be back in 2 weeks.
See you then.